Good evening, everybody. On August 13th, 2026, I received a request from Councilor Park to participate remotely in the August 13th, 2026 Stanton City Council meeting due to a personal matter that prevents her physical attendance at the meeting. Pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, I will now ask Councilor Park to state the personal matter that makes her unable to attend this evening's meeting.
We're out of town.
Okay, I will now entertain a motion to allow Councilor Park's remote participation in this meeting pursuant to Stanton City Council Procedural Memorandum Number 3.
Madam Mayor, pursuant to Stanton City Procedural Memorandum Number 3, I move to allow Councilor Park to remotely participate in the August 13th, 2026 Stanton City Council meeting due to a personal matter.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Arrowood. Is
I'll
there a second? Thank you. Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Hi.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Well, it's 5 o'clock and I'd like to call the August 13th, 2026 work session of the Stanton City Council to order. I will entertain a motion to approve the work session and regular meeting agendas.
Mayor Edwards,
Yes, Councilor Woods.
I move to approve the work session and regular meeting agendas as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Blair, will you call the roll?
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Moving on to item 2, a presentation and discussion of City of Stanton Flood Resilience Plan. Ms. Beauregard, welcome
Yes,
back.
thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor Edwards. Willow Hughes, our Environmental Programs Administrator, is here this evening now that the Stanton Flood Resilience Plan is complete. It actually has also been approved by the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation. We'll present the study tonight, and if all goes well, then this will appear on your next agenda for approval for as far as the motion. So no motion required this evening, just presentation and discussion.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Willow. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. So after about a year of work, the City of Stanton Flood Resilience Plan is finally complete. And I'm going to give you all just a brief overview of the plan and answer any questions you all might have. And I do have one of our consultants with me this afternoon, Katie Shoemaker, and she will be available to answer questions as well. So just a little bit of background. The goal of any flood resilience plan is to help localities better prepare for, respond to, and recover from flood events. And to do that for our plan, we started by analyzing the current flood risks the city faces. And then we built on that information from input with our staff. We had a advisory committee within city staff, and we had our consultant, and we did a lot of public outreach as well. And using all the information we gathered through that process, we have proposed strategies and solutions to help the city increase our flood resiliency. And I'll touch on those a little bit more in a minute, but I do want to highlight that this is just a planning level document. Nothing within it is 100% set in stone. And we can tweak this plan as we need to if we find new projects or gain new information. And so we will continue to update this plan as we go forward. And then the last bullet point there, I'll talk on that a little bit more in a little bit, but a really big point and reason that cities adopt these plans is that it opens up grant money. And so here on your screen, I have just the timeline for writing the plan. And I included that because I wanted to highlight two things. The first one We wanted this plan to be informed by our community, and to do that, we incorporated citizen involvement as much as we could. So we did a public survey, we had 2 public meetings, and this plan has already been posted for public comment. And I do just want to take a second and thank all the citizens that did participate. Without them, we would not have a community formed plan. And then the next thing I just want to highlight, this plan has already been approved by the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation. And that is important because they oversee the Virginia Community Flood Preparedness Fund, or the CFPF grant. And in order for localities to apply to receive money from this grant for construction projects, we have to have an approved plan. So this plan will help set us up to be able to apply to this. And that is a big deal because there tends to be a lot of money in this grant. I think last year, each construction project was able to earn up to $7.5 million. So that's pretty significant. And the last thing there, the map on the slide shows that the DCR considers Staunton to be a low income area. This grant requires a match from the city, but since we are low income, we would be eligible for up to 95% funding from the grant with only a 5% match from the city. All right, so with all of that, I'm just going to do a really high level overview of each section. And I just want to say the full plan is already on the city's website, and I would definitely encourage you all to read it a little bit more in depth. So section 1 covers a lot of what I just said already, talks about the purpose and the methodology, and just sort of sets up the rest of the plan. And then section 2 gets into a little bit more detail and talks about the background of flooding in the city. So we have history and hydrology of Staunton. There's an appendix of notable floods from the past. It talks about sort of the difficulties we face as an older city with legacy infrastructure that is not designed to today's standards. We talk about climate projections and how we're seeing more frequent and intense storms. It talks about hazards related to flooding that the city faces, and then it sort of just has a summary of all of our vulnerabilities. And then the next section sort of contextualizes all of that and connects it back to our actual citizens. It talks about some of the vulnerabilities we see our citizens face. A really important part of building community resilience is helping our citizens sort of overcome the vulnerabilities that are going to make it harder for them to be more resilient to flooding. So that's kind of all written out in this section. And then section 4 covers community engagement. And I talked about that already, but I'll just add one of the appendix is actually all the responses we received for the survey. So if you're curious kind of what we heard from citizens, that's included in there as well. And then we have a section specifically incorporated to make sure we're covering all that the DCR wants to see for the CFPF grant program. These are supposed to be sort of aspects of projects we prioritize. And it is required by the DCR, but these aspects will help us have better, stronger projects. And those are prioritizing the best available science, social equity, nature-based solutions, community scale, and economic responsibility. So this section sort of touches on those and how we can prioritize them. And then section 6 talks about all of our efforts to date. That kind of helps build up where we are now, what we've done, and what we already do on an annual basis. It also covers funding sources, both the things we have in the city budget, but it has a very long, comprehensive list of grants we could apply to for flood-related projects. Building flood resilience as a community is not something that the government can do by ourselves. So we also have a list of potential partner organizations who we could work with to help build up resilience in different groups across the city. And then we have a gap analysis, which looks at everything we do now, kind of notices some deficiencies and suggests specific ways we could address them. And then section 7 gets into recommended projects for flood resilience. And a big part of this one, in addition to specific projects, is a way to rank those projects. It can be kind of hard to choose what happens first. And these fact sheets are also included as an appendix in the back. And they help us kind of fairly compare projects and see whether or not they are ready now or should maybe be put off a little bit. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are the projects that we are recommending within the flood resilience plan. And I'm happy to answer questions about any of those specifically, but I'll just touch my last slide first. Section 8 is the conclusion that wraps up the whole plan. And the two biggest aspects from there are, again, this is a living document. We should be updating it regularly. And it's recommended that we look at it at least once every 3 to 5 years. And the last main highlight is that adopting this really does give us a good path towards building flood resilience, but also funding those projects. So I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
Ms. Hughes, oh, I'm sorry, go.
But no, you go ahead. Yeah.
Ms. Hughes, I had a question about some of the recommended projects, and I wondered about ordinance updates. Were there specific ordinances that you were looking at to update, or that was just sort of a tool in the tool chest?
It is mainly just sort of a tool we have. A lot of our ordinances are based on just whatever the state recs are.
Mhm.
And we have a little bit of leeway as a locality to be more stringent than that. And in a lot of places we aren't. So that's one thing we could do. We also have a riparian buffer ordinance on the books
Mhm.
that we don't currently enforce and really needs to be updated and improved. So that I think is the specific ordinance in mind for that one.
One that I wanted to call out is the riparian buffer that staff, I think, is already looking at ways that we could implement that.
Mhm.
That would have a broad citywide effect, affecting private property owners, business owners, and potentially provide incentives or at least education to help them affect water quality.
Absolutely. Yes, that is something we're working on already.
Questions from counselors, Mr. Vice Mayor Arrowood?
I did for your ranking scale for projects on that. Sometimes like with smart scale with VDOT and that kind of thing, with their ranking scale, does anything move something up if it's a low ranking project potentially and you're getting to the stuff above it, but if it's year after year getting passed over, will you end up moving things up like that, or will there be projects that continue to languish in the someday?
I think mainly the fact sheets are sort of a jumping off point. They have kind of questions that touch to those 5 aspects the DCR looks at, like do they affect one neighborhood or are they a larger impact? And they're not like a hard and fast, whichever one ranks highest is going to be the one we go with first. It's more of a tool to inform. But I think another point that I think it's in the gap analysis is that we have a really large backlog of stormwater projects that need to be addressed, like more infrastructure-based drainage issues in residential areas. And so those check sheets could help us prioritize those. And I think another step to that is building out a process that kind of addresses ones that have been on the back burner for too long and making sure we don't continue to do that.
Yeah, and certainly some are low hanging fruit to go fast. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Hughes?
I was just curious to, on the DCR, how their ranking goes to provide the funding. I'm glad that we are in that low income, but you
Mhm.
know, how their ranking go to put us in that category?
They do like to see projects that meet a lot of those 5 aspects. So they do prioritize projects that are nature-based and have a large community impact. Beyond that, they are in charge of choosing their own projects. It's hard to say exactly what will
You going home?
Is that better? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Josh.
I'll bring that back down.
Technology is great when it works. Thank you.
Like you speak.
Josh, are you in control of this? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. The debris that you're,
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I already had a question. Yeah.
It does seem like that it's not necessarily going to be a handful of huge projects that will make a big difference, but as you say, sort of process oriented, building in our processes, looking for opportunities to reduce impermeable surface, and the cumulative effect of lots of processes and small efforts that over time will make the difference. Is that fair?
Yes, and one of our gaps that was identified is that some of the larger plans we have mention flooding, but don't mention specific ways to move forward. So some of these are specific ways to move forward.
And I was thinking of, you were saying about debris, out in the neighborhoods, obviously the lids where leaves can sometimes block the drainage. But I recall when the excavation first started in the tunnels, it was found that there was debris just coming through during bigger floods. Would there be a scheduled clearing out, I suppose, of large trees or whatever gets caught up in floods in our new tunnels?
Yeah, so that is actually a point that came up directly in a public meeting from some of our citizens. They were curious about tunnel debris and other debris throughout the city. And specifically, the thing there would be to have a strategy developed so that we do have a schedule for addressing the tunnels. It's also something we could look at to explore either, an outside contractor or additional public works staff to regularly clean out storm drains and things like that. And kind of a different portion of what I do, but there are actually stormwater nutrient credits that we need for our city TMDL associated with cleaning out storm drains. So that would be a double whammy for us if we could get that. Yeah.
So one of the projects on here is recommend for educational programs. Can you elaborate on what that would be?
Yeah, we have some really great staff here. Specifically, Rebecca Joyce used to do a lot of flood awareness, and this is something she and I have talked about a lot. It's pretty low-hanging fruit for us to put together some educational awareness so that citizens can recognize what they can do for themselves to increase their own flood resiliency at home and as they travel. So that is something we would like to do, to just sort of either put on our Facebook page or maybe host events where we can just provide that information to the public in a more accessible way.
I know you used to go to schools. Do you do that still?
Yes, we do. We go to the sixth graders at Shelburne.
Any other questions for Ms. Hughes before we say thank you?
I just want to say thank you, Willow. I really love that you took the time to highlight all the public input that came into this with the different citizen meetings and stuff like that. I just think it's another testament that the city staff does go out of their way to make sure that the public is involved. And I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor Park. All righty. Well, thank you, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you all.
Appreciate your time and effort in putting into this, that you've put into this. All righty. Moving on to item 3, we have a presentation and discussion of the wharf daylighting feasibility study. Ms. Beauregard.
Yes, so the last time this was in front of City Council was actually in October of last year, when you all provided some guidance to us that we could move forward with Wiley Wilson to develop a feasibility study to review daylighting options at the wharf. So I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Dan and let him introduce himself again and go from there.
Great. Thank you for having me. My name is Dan Sutton. I'm the project manager and senior engineer with Wiley Wilson. We've been working with the city for several years now, looking at the downtown flooding and evaluating the tunnel system. And tonight I'm going to give you an update on where we're at with the wharf daylighting study. I wanted to back up just a little bit and talk about the history of kind of where we're at and how we got here real quick. In March of 2025, we had 2 structural engineers go down into the tunnels and do a visual inspection. And what we found was some significant damage to portions of the tunnel underneath the wharf parking lot mainly. Several of these were to the point that we recommended that traffic be limited over the top of them. The two areas in blue here are under construction right now, and the area in red is the area that's still closed off right now and is severely compromised. There's additional areas out there that need repairs, but these are the most severe areas that we recommended limited access to. We also brought some contractors down into the tunnel to see, can we do some repairs? Can we do this from inside the tunnel? And 4 contractors, all that specialize in this type of work, were unanimous saying, no, that's not really feasible, that's not economical, and it's not safe. So that wasn't an option, which really left us with limited options of what we can do to address these areas. Option 1 would be replace the tunnel. That has a higher cost. We can retain the parking by doing that. Option 2 is the daylighting of the tunnel, opening that up. That has a lower cost. We're losing those parking spaces. We also have this opportunity to create a unique community asset around these open areas with that daylighting of the tunnel. I want to talk just about, I guess, what option 3 would be, which would be do nothing. And I think anyone here is advocating that we would do this, but just to hit on what, just want to touch on this briefly. The tunnels themselves are not in imminent danger of failing, but they're not getting any better the longer we wait to do something about this. We have a continued limited use of the wharf parking lot, and we have this risk that the next big flood does damage that to the point where it collapses, where we have additional flooding. That additional flooding increases potential damage to city infrastructure and private property. So let's talk a little bit about what the daylighting study included. The purpose of the daylighting study was to look at the replacement versus daylighting, looking at the impacts to the wharf parking lot, looking at the cost of those, and then looking at the stormwater impacts as well. So scenario number 1 is we look at 3 different scenarios. Scenario 1 was replacing the tunnel and restoring the parking lot. This would be similar construction, what's going on right now on Byers. Remove that existing tunnel, put in that larger tunnel that is already installed at Byers, and then continue with that larger tunnel to connect up into Johnson. Replace that whole section of the most severely deteriorated tunnel section. At the end of this, you would have your parking lot in a similar condition that you had before we restricted the access to it. Scenario number 2 is daylighting that same portion. What I've got here is the blue is the approximate water surface elevation. That green would be that vegetated bank. And the light gray is that unprogrammed space right now that could remain as parking or be reimagined as something more unique in that area. But that is that would be replacing that most severely deteriorated portion. We also looked at did I lose scenario number 3? What happened? Oh, here we go. Scenario number 3, I'm going to go backwards. Scenario number 3 we looked at would be daylighting the entire tunnel section underneath the wharf parking lot. And as you can see, we still have some of that unprogrammed space that could be community asset or continue to remain as parking. I did want to give you just a little bit of sense of what this daylight section would look like. On the top is the daylight section for both the Peyton Creek and Lewis Creek. And the middle section includes an overlay of what the Peyton Creek tunnel section would be. On the bottom, that's the Lewis Creek tunnel section. Over the top of that, just to give you a little bit of sense of what that daylighting would look like and the extent of that channel section.
I know it's hard for people to see, but it looks like the water is 2.5 feet deep.
Yeah, about 2.5 feet.
Okay.
That's right. Yep, at the deepest, and that's a slope down to the center of that. That's right. along with putting these plans together, we also developed a detailed stormwater model, a HEC-RAS 2D model. We used the scanned information that we already had to give us very detailed dimensions, locations, and slopes of all the tunnels. We also used the storm data and gauge data that the city has collected over the last couple of years to help us look at the hydrology. It's a small sample set, but still useful. And with that model, we were able to compare all of these three different scenarios with the existing conditions to see what impacts they have to different storm events. So what did we find here? The key takeaways, one is that daylighting is going to reduce the construction costs. You've got a loss of that parking, but it does have a reduction in construction costs. What we found in the stormwater model for all of these is that all the scenarios, none of them increase the flooding, none of them significantly reduce the flooding. And just the daylighting, just the modifications to the tunnel in the parking lot, in the wharf parking lot, does not do anything to meaningfully address the flooding issues down there. The main reason for the flooding is downstream restrictions that are affecting the hydraulic head of that and is causing that's the main cause of the flooding in the wharf parking lot.
It's just, so when you say downstream restrictions, that's just, there are other things built on top of the stream or.
It's a little, there's a buildings over the top of the tunnel.
Mhm.
There are changes in the tunnel dimensions. It's a very flat section of tunnel, and just downstream of this, all of that is resulting in water backing up. And so whatever we do in the parking lot just gets stuck at that restriction at the wharf. And that's the major cause. It's a complicated thing, but that's the major cause of the flooding in the parking lot. And that was the key takeaway from the stormwater modeling.
So were the downstream restrictions part of your study? Did you look at those specifically and get data, take measurements? Do modeling?
Yes, we modeled all of those. Yeah, we have.
Where's the data that supports your conclusion that the downstream restrictions are the main cause of flooding?
That would be the stormwater model and the report that is being reviewed right now and will be sent to Willow as a final draft. But yes, there is
data to support.
Yeah. We have a detailed two-dimensional HEC-RAS model that is based off of actual surveyed information and from our scan, and that is the industry standard. This is a very complicated system of piped flow and overland flow, and that HEC-RAS 2D model is the standard to model this.
Can you say anything about where those restrictions are? The main ones that you think are mostly responsible for the flooding risk?
It is the section between New Street and Byers. All of those tunnel sections, we've got several buildings over the top of the tunnels. We've got several different shapes of tunnels through there. There's an arch. There's a tunnel several different shapes of tunnels through there. And it's also extremely flat. We've got a little bit of slope on the upstream side of that and a little bit of slope on the downstream. And that section is just pretty much dead flat through there. All of that is contributing to the approximately 5-foot hydraulic jump that's occurring through there. I don't know that I can say specifically it's one of those. It's all of those contributing together to create this issue. Our model did include opening up that entire section and trying to just have that completely open. We're still seeing restrictions upstream of this.
And that matches what the FEMA floodplain maps show as well. I mean, it shows a gathering area at the wharf parking lot, and then it converges down to almost more of a channel as it goes through towards New Street.
Yeah, it's a 13 square mile area coming down to this, trying to push through and there's just no other
Yeah.
place for it to go. It's a lot of storm water coming down to this area.
And just to, this modeling didn't show a significant change, but even if you were to expand the entire wharf to a drainage basin, there's just nothing you can do to have a significant mitigation on the flood based on the hydrology of the entire corridor.
Not with just expanding there are things that we looked at. I don't know how much we want to get into that, but yes, there is no expanding, making the tunnel larger, making the channel larger does not do anything for capacity of the tunnel. Yeah.
What's the difference in the water carrying capacity of these waterways? Just say current tunnel compared to daylighting. Based on your schematics here, it looks like the potential width of the channel is 4 times the width of the tunnel, the current tunnel. And of course, then the height of it is larger too. So it must be 3, 4, 5, I don't know, times the amount of water that it can.
Yeah, so the main reason why that natural channel is a much bigger area compared to a concrete channel is that concrete channel is smooth, can more efficiently move water through that. As you put in a natural channel with vegetation that's rougher, slows down the water. So you need a larger section to move the same amount of water. These are moving the same amount of water. We modeled these without restrictions downstream to make sure that they can pass a 10-year storm through them. Then we ran them in the model with the restrictions downstream. They still have that capacity. The downstream is ponding water up to the point that it can't push more than a 2-year storm through it. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. To interpret, ask a question about one of your points here, the cost of daylighting is less than repair. The upfront cost of daylighting is less than the cost of repairing tunnels. Is that right?
The construction cost, yes.
Yes. And over time, long-term costs of maintaining a daylighted section versus maintaining a tunnel, the savings would be even more, wouldn't they?
There would be a little bit more upfront as the daylit section is established. It would be that very first few years as it's establishing would be a little bit more upfront cost. But certainly once it's established, once it's in there, I would say that the long-term maintenance cost would be similar or less than a tunnel.
Out of curiosity, blank check. How do you solve the restrictions downstream? I lived in Charleston, South Carolina, which is this far, an inch above sea level, and they put in 4 giant water pumps that are just whenever there's a heavy storm and it's high tide, Market Street floods down there, but they're just continually pumping it out. And that's large city scale cost on that. But I mean, is there any, as somebody with Public Works in the past said, if you give me $2 billion, I can solve it. But is there any potential solution? I mean, suddenly, we get wonderful grant money down the line that could move more water downstream and prevent that back pushing of water.
I think the one thing that we did look at is adding some flood walls into this. And that's another piece of the issue we're having is not just the restriction, but we have no ability to have any head in the water in the wharf. There's only a foot of cover over the top of those tunnels, and so that is something we did look at and putting some flood walls in there would be something that could increase capacity by allowing that to pond up a little bit more and push through that restriction and having a little bit more. Outside of that, several years ago, we did look at what would a 12-foot diameter
Relief.
relief
Yeah, whatever,
around this
yeah.
whole section look like? What would a pump station down in this area look like? And tens and tens of millions of dollars for still pretty minimal impacts on that. This is a 200-foot wide flood zone through here that we're trying to put through a 17-foot wide channel and no overflow. It's a bathtub.
Yeah. Well, connected to that with the knee walls, I was curious in our two items, we talked about this and I was curious about, you were saying that, yeah, it could be walls in the area, not even giant walls either would help, but that would kind of store it as it's able to move out. But these would still be effective with daylighting?
You could do that in either scenario, daylight or.
So daylight
or the-
wouldn't defeat those in other areas?
No, I think there's
Okay.
there's some benefits for daylighting that would allow us to incorporate those in different areas. Really haven't gotten too far other than just looking at kind of a proof of concept that actually if we put in a couple of feet and lift this water up a little bit, it now has enough hydraulic capacity to push through that restriction.
Okay. So we're not in any way sabotaging moving the water through by opening up part of the pipe?
No,
Okay.
no. The flood wall is kind of a separate.
Okay.
Is a separate piece to the daylighting versus the daylighting really comes down now that we've done the modeling and shown. And again, it wasn't that surprising that we didn't see much change in the flooding conditions or that was what we were expecting. And so that wasn't a surprise. It really comes down to how much area do we want to take up of the parking lot and how much money do we want to spend on repairing this? We know we need to do something to open this back up. We know we can't just repair this. We've already looked at that. So we have limited options to address this, and that's more where the decision comes down to.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Sutton, you said it's a 10-year, just in case folks haven't heard of this before, a 10-year tunnel which means it can withstand a 10-year storm, or
So
you measured against
we
a storm.
the 10-year would be the level of service or the capacity that
Right.
we would design any stormwater structure to. That's what these are designed to meet 10-year if we don't have that downstream restriction.
Right.
With the downstream restriction, we still are not able to push that 10-year through there. And making this larger and larger and larger, we're still stuck at that restriction downstream of this.
On that note, I just, so these are the typical sections you came up with from a 10-year standpoint, but there's flexibility here in case, if we were to pursue a daylighting scenario, just from whatever we choose to go with from a programming standpoint, you could have less slope or run it out further on one side, maybe engineer another side a little more.
Yeah, no, definitely. This was conceptual at this point, and is we know this works. This would be our starting point. But yeah, if we wanted to have more space left in the wharf parking lot, we could have some sort of engineered, wall on one side.
So I think we all understand that this is, it's not going to be a perfect fix. And we just need to give direction to staff based on what Mr. Sutton has told us. And I believe that we're thinking about 3 different options. And I think the variables that we've discussed so far are money, cost. It seems to be slightly less expensive for daylighting. We'd have to make a decision whether you'd want partial daylighting or that full daylighting of the wharf parking lot. It looks like we are going to be weighing that against parking spaces being lost. And aesthetics, and people are asking for is daylighting and what it's going to do to bring people down to the wharf. And I think those are the things that we're looking at right now. It's not a fix to the flooding problem.
Connecting with what you're saying, that this is an engineering study, and it doesn't sort of address the potential economic benefits of daylighting, creating a more inviting space for people to come that potentially creates a point of attraction, creates shade, benches, ways that people can linger downtown and spend money. It doesn't address those aspects. Those would be additional dimensions that we address and consider.
Correct.
Mr. Sutton, I don't think you can address this, but I think probably a staff member could for us, and that would be how many parking spaces would be lost and how many parking spaces we currently have available downtown. That would be public place spaces, free public spaces that folks could utilize.
We have regained the use of the lot directly across from the historic courthouse,
Right.
too. So now that the county has vacated that, so that adds to the total at least.
Does.
And on that note, I mean,
Currently doing a parking and traffic study.
well, that's what I was going to get at is it's in our Stanton plan to do this comprehensive downtown study with a parking component. And ideally that would be in place before we get too much further down the road here. But
Right.
if time is of the essence, if we basically have no man's land down there that we can't use. So I think all of us would agree that there's an opportunity here, but a partial daylighting is probably the best combination. And I'd like to see us advance sooner rather than later, the next step of a vision of what this could look like to benefit multiple aspects of our city. I just don't know how we get there.
Well, including public meetings about.
I think we need to develop and come back to you all with a
Mhm.
pretty comprehensive community engagement process.
Mhm.
I am a little concerned, and we can talk about this. I mean, let staff kind of think about this and talk to Dan some more if that's the direction you'd like to go. Because you're right, Mayor, there's no good solutions here. All of them kind of stink because we're kind of being forced to do something, which it just happened to fall in this period of time. But so we'd like to kind of, with the input you're all giving us tonight,
Mhm.
come back with a plan. We'll talk to Dan about that some more and staff, but that's going to be really important. And I do get worried about the bigger downtown vision because I don't want this to get held up by that. So I kind of want to think through how that all fits together because I'm not sure how that all fits together because it seems like a lot of pieces that are moving when this is really important over here right now. And this seems to be the highest priority, at least as far as we're concerned, I believe. So that being said, I think we just need to have more discussion about this, but whatever input you all give us tonight will be very helpful. And then we can come back to you all frequently in the near future about kind of what those next steps looks like and as far as that engagement piece and getting that input that you all need to make some decisions.
I think what Jeff said was looking, I mean, obviously, Mr. Sutton couldn't tell us what economic advantages there are to creating a more inviting space with a daylighting situation. But if that were somehow, if you could look at how that is played out in other localities, because yes, there would be parking spaces lost, but if we did the partial daylighting, it looks like there still remains a very good part of the parking lot. And as the Vice Mayor pointed out, we are getting back that parking lot from the courthouse across the street or down the street. So I think looking at the economic benefit of daylighting, if we can quantify that at all, I know we can find qualitative data there.
Also keeping the businesses in mind, and I know that you all are keeping in contact with them and, seeing how their businesses is doing and everything else down there too, with the parking spaces they've lost so far because of the work that is being done there now. How is that going? And how do you think that would, taking away the parking spaces later would affect if it's not really, hindering their businesses now?
And staff has also been tracking the the use of the parking garage.
Yeah, I think the counters
That's-
were put back in. So, and I mean, so we are getting data on the Johnson Street lot
Yeah.
here. Yeah. Yes. So I think Miss Wilson put the counters back in. I think they were taken out for a little bit.
To Councilor Campbell's point, without having a holistic study in place, this project does seem to connect with a lot of the needs and the priorities for the downtown area. A more attractive space, more shade, more places to sit, potential performance areas. I think some of those, Tracy Weil is with us today. Her students helped sketch out some visions and possibilities. And that's part of what we need, I think, as a next step is visions and possibilities, as well as cold hard facts, economic studies that based on where this kind of thing has been done in other locations that point to economic and other kinds of benefits. But I'm definitely interested in exploring this further, having the visions built out, trying to quantify the impacts as much as possible, and yes, being really careful to have good public engagement throughout this process to try to anticipate impacts, costs and benefits, and working with all our residents, particularly the downtown businesses, to make sure this goes smoothly.
When do we expect to have the final report and expect it to be publicly available?
So at this point, we've got just a rendering of the final of the three scenarios, well, of the two scenarios of to do that rendering and wanted to have this before we give your
Skip the
input
do
on that.
nothing one.
I
Yeah.
figured we really had that much of a rendering for that one. But that's the remaining piece that's out there. So within a month, we would have the final rendering and the final pieces of everything complete.
And staff will talk about when a community engagement would begin.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that and we'll come back to you all to prepare options for that. Yeah.
All righty, well, thank
know-
you. Yeah.
I know
I'm
right
sorry.
now it seems like a daunting and huge project, but where we were a while ago when we first started your first presentation, that first video of the tunnels, we've come a long way. Thanks to your hard work and the city staff's hard work, we were able to make the streets safe and keep businesses open and accessible downtown. And I think that's very impressive. And staff figured out how to pay for it and not have to borrow any money. So we're going into this in a positive way. So appreciate all your help and all of staff's help. And so we're in a good position to move forward on this project. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
All righty, well, last comment, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Sutton. We appreciate your time and effort in that presentation. All righty, well, this takes us to our final work session item. We have a closed meeting. Would a member of council like to make a motion to enter a closed session?
So-
Adam, would you like to make a motion?
Oh, God, it's like 10 feet long.
I move to enter a closed meeting for one, discussion of the award of a public contract for the expenditure of public funds for the scope of a public works contract for improvements on West Johnson Street, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the city of Staunton pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29, and two, the discussion of the disposition of publicly held real property located on West Johnson Street, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the city of Staunton pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Could you repeat that?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Mr. Wood, Miss Woods, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowwood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We're now in closed session. Hope to see you back here at 7 o'clock. I will now entertain a motion to reconvene in an open meeting.
Madam Mayor, I move that council reconvene in an open meeting and certify to the best of each member's knowledge that only lawfully exempted public business matters were discussed and that only public business matters as identified in the closed meeting motion were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting.
Second.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Miss Park,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Miss Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowwood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Blair. It is now 7 o'clock and I'd like to call the August 13th, 2026, that's mistake one, regular meeting of the Staunton City Council to order. Please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, and justice for all. Meeting. Welcome this evening. Our invocation will come to us from Councilor Park, who is remotely joining us. Miss Park.
Hi. I have a back to school prayer by a woman named Priscilla Brown, so I hope I can do it justice. God, it's that time of year, the time that brings for some children and young adults fresh new possibilities, new schools, new teachers, new teams, new. And in this new, they see the sky as the limit. May we adults continue to fan its flame and not throw cold water on their hopes and dreams. Thank you for these children. Bless them, keep them safe this year. May their joy be contagious and spread. The world needs their joy. Use them, God. And God, there are many children for whom this time of year is terrifying. All the new that one child sees as fresh and exciting, another may experience with dread and anxiety. Their souls are unsettled, their minds are anxious, their hearts are trembling. Draw near to these children. Speak to them in your still small voice. May their bodies feel your presence and know they are not alone. May their uneasy thoughts be filled with your peace and loving care, and may their spirit be filled with your power. Please, God, this year bring angels into their lives in the form of bus drivers, friends on the playground, teachers, coaches, counselors, and janitors. People who really see them, connect with them, love them, value them, and grow them. God, thank you for all the adults that have taken on the mantle of educator in our children's lives. Grant us all respectful communication with one another. Keep us from the divisive us versus them mentality that at times creeps into our lives. Open our eyes to the we in these circumstances so we may come together in solving problems and creating solutions for our children. We don't know what these next 10 months will bring for our kids and our families, but based on past experience, we know there will be good and bad, joy and grief, exuberance and pain. Thank you for all of it, God. Help us help our children through it so in the end they are more confident, empathetic, hopeful, resilient, and more their true selves, the persons you've created them to be. And most of all, God, in all of this, may our children come to see themselves as you see them, precious, valued, cherished, powerful. For all these lessons and all others you've allowed us to learn in our lives thus far, we thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilor Park. Well, I'm going to start out my mayor's report by welcoming our interim director of Public Works. I'd like to invite Mr. Stephen King to the podium to tell us a little bit about himself, please. Good evening, sir. How are you this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. It's a pleasure to be here. Just to tell you a little bit about my background. I started in the private sector and was there for 5 years or so working for Michael Baker Jr. And we did flood studies, flood-related work. Ironically, having grown up in Buena Vista, I had the opportunity to go back to Buena Vista and work for the city as the city engineer. And the Corps of Engineers built a large flood protection project there. And so I was the city's rep. And that's how I got into local government. It wasn't intentional. It happened by chance, but I found it very rewarding. And then when my wife and I were ready to have our second child, we decided maybe it's time to move. She's from Buena Vista as well, went to Mary Baldwin. If your public works position had been open then, I would have been very interested in the position. Ended up in Rockingham County as public works director there. And spent 5 years as public works director, then 12 as deputy county administrator, and then Bill O'Brien, who retired, and Joe Paxton moved up as county administrator. Joe was with the county for 39 years. And so I was fortunate enough that the board selected me to be the next county administrator, which I did for a little over 9 years and retired a couple years ago. And now I'm working with the Berkeley Group, and one of the services they provide is interim administrator services and also assisting with the search for a full-time director. And so I've had 3 weeks on the job here. And I have to say, I've been very impressed with the people who do the work, you know. And that's not the public works director. That's the people who make things happen. I got to see it in person yesterday when you had 2 water leaks within a couple hundred yards of each other. Those happened at 3:30. That's about the time the folks who they show up at 6:30 or 7 are getting ready to leave. And the guys who jumped on that work, guys and gals who jumped on that work, did so with no hesitation, full enthusiasm, and they got those leaks repaired within a very good time frame, and it really impressive to see them. And that's been, frankly, in 3 weeks across the board with all the people I've interacted there and in this building, from IT to finance to HR. Although Leslie wasn't here, but I'll say city manager's office too. She wasn't here for a good part of that. And you can see why she's able to feel comfortable taking some vacation time, which she needs to recharge, because you've got some good people here making sure things get done. So I'm just filling the gap, and hopefully we'll find a good candidate to fill it full time. And I'm enjoying it now, and I'm going to continue to enjoy it. And a lot of it, again, has to do with the people who do the work. So you have a good team.
Well, so that's wonderful. I'm glad you found your experience to be so enjoyable, and we are very, very happy to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege.
And you're very welcome here.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to make this short. I always say I'm going to make it short. I'm going to make it short. I want to let everyone know there were a couple of us sitting here. We attended the Stanton's first solo national night out. I'm sure others on this dais are going to say how fabulous it was. But what the National Night Out is, it's an annual community building campaign that strengthens police community partnerships and neighborhood partnerships, hoping to create a safer and more caring communities. National Night Out builds positive relationships between neighbors and law enforcement while fostering a stronger sense of community in a welcoming setting. Now, normally, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, if anyone's from PD here, but normally our police department does this with Augusta County and Waynesboro, I believe. This month was the first time Stanton had done it on its own, and it was an overwhelming, fantastic success. It was fire department, police department, sheriffs, Virginia State Police. I know you were there, Blake, and you were there, Jeff. I saw folks. It's really for kids and families, but old ladies like me still get excited like a little kid too. And I heard immediately that next year was going to be better. So I'm sure others would like to say something fun about it. So I'll just finish up. So it was up at the JNDR Court parking lot. It was full. It was packed. There were, I'm sure there's a number, hundreds and hundreds of people showed up, had a really good time. I want to just announce Staunton Montessori School. We're getting another school. Staunton Montessori School is finally returning after many, many years of having operated in Augusta County. And it is taking over the historic Statler complex on Thorn Rose Avenue. For any families with school-age children, they are operating preschool through elementary and before and after care. SMS is inviting the entire community to celebrate with them on August 29th from 1 to 4. They are having a block party with lots of activities for young families. There's going to be live music from none other than the Hot Mamas. You can tour the campus and win prizes from local businesses. And that's all I have. Anything else from other members of council?
Madam Mayor, several of us attended the historical marker dedications for several of the African American churches on Augusta Street. That was really well attended. Great markers for very historic churches there.
Excellent event. Absolutely. I enjoyed that very much. Thank you for reminding me.
I had the opportunity to attend the Community Voices panel at the Staunton Public Library hosted by the NAACP, League of Women Voters, and Luna's Mutual Aid. And it was just a terrific opportunity to continue to build a community centered around civic engagement. So just shout out to those organizations trying to keep citizens involved in what's happening.
Thank you, Councilor Park. Anyone else? Councilor Overholzer.
Madam Mayor, last week was the public launch of the Less to the Landfill initiative, where we're trying to reduce landfill deposits by 5% in the city. And that happily coincided with some great enhancements in our recycling programs. We now accept number 5, plastic number 5s, in addition to 1s and 2s, and they can be all mingled. So that's additional convenience for our residents and additional opportunity to divert that from the landfill. Also, the wonderful partnership, thanks to the hard work of city staff and building that partnership with Shenandoah Green, we have composting containers at the recycling center that are available to the public whenever the recycling center is open. So significant opportunities. And just to remind people that this is potentially a real win-win for the city, where people are concerned about government spending, they want to reduce our costs. Reducing, I did some of the calculations here. So 5%, that's about 2.4 million pounds it would take away from the landfill. Meeting that goal would save the city tens of thousands of dollars in landfill expenses and prevent up to 1 million pounds of carbon dioxide from being emitted into the atmosphere. So win for the environment, win for our pocketbooks. If half of our 11,000 households would divert an additional 10 pounds of waste weekly from the landfill, we would blow by that 5% goal. And so I hope everybody can get behind this. Everybody will get involved. And I just want to call out city staff and particularly Josh Knight, who's sitting here. He has really demonstrated resourcefulness, creativity, and great determination in pushing this initiative forward with limited budget and resources. Also, Michelle, who oversees the recycling center and other public works employees.
Not me. You
No,
pointed
no.
at me. I was like,
No.
Okay.
The city employee. The work that they're doing to improve recycling operations and educate residents about waste reduction. They're doing great work. And of course, Shenandoah Green, wonderful community partners. And that's what makes the success of a city, is having great partners and great employees. So I wanted to thank them all.
Awesome.
Also, just one quick item that I, along with some other council members here, the Virginia Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry made a presentation to Rotary on July 29th. And I'll just call out one interesting thing she said, that agriculture is the largest private sector business in Virginia, and that one of the fastest growing sectors of agriculture in Virginia is what's called controlled environmental agriculture. So that's things like huge greenhouses for to do things like hydroponics, growing things in a very controlled environment. So with extreme climate and climate changes, this is becoming more economically advantageous. And maybe this is a prospect for Staunton Crossing, maybe something we could cash in on. But great presentation.
It was fantastic. Very interesting. All righty. Well, I'm going to move on. Thank you, everyone. To item A, the consent agenda. Per procedure memorandum number 14, it's the policy of city council to have routine, non-controversial items placed on a consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be voted on in one motion. If separate discussion of an item is requested by any member of council, it shall be removed and considered separately at the end of the regular meeting. Do any members of council wish to remove any items to be placed at the end of the regular meeting agenda for separate consideration?
Madam Mayor,
Okay, Vice
Yeah.
Mayor Arrowood.
in the interest of clarification and explanation, I would like to remove items A4, A5, and A6 from the consent agenda.
4 through A6, you said? Thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion to,
That's Brad's, Mr. Arrow's
I
motion.
move to.
I'm sorry, you
I'll
moved
second
to,
it.
would you,
Yeah,
would someone like to
yes.
make a second mistake? Someone make a
I'll second.
second? Is there any further discussion about this item? Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. All righty, well, these are the only items on the agenda. So Ms. Beauregard,
So we'll start with
item
A4.
A4. Yeah, so we're starting with
Do we do
A4
the consent agenda
for the
first?
consent. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, what?
Item A4 is consideration of update to personnel policy manual.
Do we have to
We do the consent.
vote?
agenda.
I mean, yeah, consider the other three?
No.
Just did.
That was, it's an automatic per your procedure
Okay.
when one.
Okay, approve everything except for
Yes.
those.
Yes.
Okay.
So now we're going to hear
Thank you.
about the three
So
items.
now we're going to hear about those three. So starting with item A4, consideration of update to personnel policy manual. Ms. Beauregard.
So John Finn, our Chief Human Resources Officer, is here this evening to
Here.
answer questions about this item.
Good
Mayor-
evening. Good
Mayor
evening, Ms. Wren.
Edwards, council members. In your briefing, in February of 2025, City Council approved major revisions to our personnel policy manual, including a revision of policy 4.7 salary adjustments, in particular promotion of pay. The revision included adjusting the rate of the promoted employee from a minimum of 5% to 10% above his or her present rate of pay, or to a minimum rate of the higher grade, whichever is greater. Since initiating this revision, the increase of a 10% at the point of promotion has created salary compression issues among our employees, which is not financially sustainable. As a result of this unintended consequence, we are recommending that this policy revert back to the 5% increase for promotions or the minimum rate of pay for the higher classification, whichever is greater. And I will also note, this does not affect, police and fire have their own classification system, so this does not affect police and fire. As I look, I want to
Yeah.
make sure they understand that. So this evening, we're requesting that you all approve the revision to this policy, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So compression issues, does this just
So
mean?
here's an
Yeah.
example, here's an example. We had somebody who received a certification in September, which moved them to it was a promotion. They got 10%. In February, they got another certification, which is great. They're getting this, but
Yeah.
they got another promotion. Now they're at 20%. And last week, they just got another certification, so they've gotten a 30% increase. And so what happens is they skip over other employees that may have been here a long time. And then we have to look at potentially adjusting other employees' rate of pay. And if that happened across the entire city, Jessie Moore is not here, and she is quite aware of this. It would present significant problems. Now, having said that, there may be a situation where a 10% increase is warranted. Ms. Beauregard has the authority to do that by way of the director. We would entertain that idea, and that potentially could happen. But a flat 10% increase, we just cannot sustain at this point.
Can be considered on a case by case
Absolutely.
basis.
Absolutely. And it will happen. But again, across the board, we felt this would be the right move right now.
Right. Well, thank you for that explanation. Any other questions? Mr. Blair, do we vote on
Yes,
Okay.
everyone's separate.
Any other questions for Mr. Venn? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're good.
Thanks for the clarification.
Righty, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the update to the personnel policy manual?
Fair. I move to approve the update to our personnel policy manual.
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Miss Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Miss Park,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Blair. Moving to item A5, consideration of amendments to Title II and Title 13 of the Staunton City Code to remove references to the city health officer and inspection inspector. Ms. Beauregard.
John Blair, city attorney, is going to review this item.
Good evening, Mayor Edwards and
Good evening.
council. Before you tonight are some proposed amendments to the city code, and they refer to a health officer. And the health officer used to be the city manager appointed subject to confirmation of the city council. Also had a sanitation officer in which the city manager appointed the sanitation officer upon the consent of city council. Virginia's public health system, this was something that, believe it or not, I looked at the minutes. There was a Dr. Bradford who was the health officer from 1909 to 1953 for the city. You had to be a physician. But this goes back at least to 1909 in terms of a health officer used to be appointed. And this used to be a city administered function.
When was the last time we had a full-time city position?
As best I can determine is 1975. There was a handoff in 1975 and it's the first meeting of 1975. If you look at the minutes, and at that time, the new health department director was introduced to council. Since that time, both the sanitation function as well as the health department function have no longer been subject to the city manager and council. The health department is now a contracted position. The sanitation inspector who looked at water in conjunction with the health officer, that's now Public Works. And in the briefing, you'll see in 1974, Congress passed the National Safe Drinking Water Act, and Virginia in 1974 enacted its first comprehensive water works regulations. And water regulations before then, there was the old water purity standard, which was more bacteriological samples. But in 74, after Congress passed that and the state started to administer it, became a health department function with a lot more comprehensive look at the water system. So now our Public Works Department does its certification process through the state health department. We no longer have a health officer who's in charge of the fluoridation or the composition of the water supply. That goes through the state at the state health department.
So to clarify, this is not removing any positions
No.
at all. This is cleanup of language in.
Right. Health officer, again, used to be a council appointed position, and that's what's being removed. It still says the public health function still occurs. It's just through the health department.
It's all been more formalized and regulated.
Correct. And the water function is through the state health department, but our Public Works Department is who certifies and goes through that process with the state health department, not a health officer or sanitation officer appointed by the city manager.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's interesting. We can make you honorary city historian.
No. I love it though. I mean, I do love looking at the old minutes.
We're codifying something that's been in place since the 70s.
Right.
But
Overlooked
it is
in the title.
interesting to know that.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Blair? Thank you, Mr. Blair, very much.
Okay.
All righty.
I move to amend Title II and Title 13 of the Stanton City Code to remove references to the city health officer and sanitary inspector.
I'll second.
Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Miss Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Miss Park,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Moving on to A6, Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services, FY 2027, Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. Ms. Beauregard.
Yes, we have Captain Chad Kaufman here this evening to go through this item and answer any questions you have.
Madam Mayor, members of council.
Good evening.
I also have Sergeant Butch Shiflett. He's here to answer any technical questions you might have about this grant because he's kind of our resident expert in that area. As you can see in your briefing, we are seeking approval to apply for a grant through the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services, Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Program grant program. That's a mouthful. This is an annual grant, different focus areas each year. This particular round of funding is focusing on digital forensics hardware. And so that's why we're applying for it now. And it will be used to purchase a new digital forensics workstation, as well as a Faraday tower, which is essentially a cabinet that shields seized devices from external wireless signals to prevent people from remotely wiping their phones or resetting them while we have them in our possession. And the total program cost is $26,430. The DCGS share of that is $19,822. And then the city police department would pay the rest, $6,608 through existing asset forfeiture funds. So be happy to answer any questions that you have.
We actually hit my primary question, which was what are you using the Faraday cage for? So that's just an expansion of what we already have.
That's right. We have one of those already. But the volume of devices that we are seizing, cell phones, computers, or, there's digital evidence in those for a lot of the cases that we work now, and we just can't process them fast enough. So we need that additional storage space for those while we're trying to process those. And that's the reason we need the second workstation as well. The one we have now is a little bit older and doesn't have the processing speed that we need. And so we'll have two of those. We'll be able to run more devices at once and process the evidence quicker.
And it's grants like this that help us keep up with increased demand for these kinds of things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do they focus how do they pick the focus of the grant each cycle? Is it based on emerging needs?
Yeah, I'm not certain. They release the guidelines, and sometimes there's more than one focus area. And, yeah.
What kind of cooperation is there among local law service agencies on this kind of capability, forensics, other kinds of lab capability? I can see having the advantage of having local capability to do things quickly, efficiently, but I wonder as it scales up with complexity and cost, have redundancies with Waynesboro, Augusta County, Staunton. Is there any cooperation now on that kind of work?
There is. There are different software programs that are used depending on the type of device that you're trying to analyze. We have some. Augusta County has some. There is no state level lab that does this, so it's left up to the locality to do it, I believe. And you might be able to answer. Huh? You want to answer that? Yeah.
So some of the part with the AG's office in Virginia does process digital evidence, but there's a minimum of a 6-month backlog. And so when we're taking in victims, witnesses' cell phones to process them and help solve these crimes, we want to return those devices to them much faster, especially, we don't want to remove a victim's cell phone or witnesses any longer than we have to. So part of this is when it's legally and evidentiary acceptable, we're going to be returning these devices. And with having that type of backlog and other agencies experiencing that, we're able to do it in-house with this equipment and get it returned to them as soon as possible.
The other thing I'm thinking about, technology is such a moving target, and I imagine, maybe this capability will be obsolete in 2 to 3 years. You'll need something new. So I don't know if you're thinking about that, planning about the needs down the road.
Well, that's why we've chosen these. We've worked with the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force to come up with the best solution. We've also spoke with several vendors to come up with these solutions.
What's the lifespan, the projected lifespan of this equipment?
Projected, I mean, I would like to say at least 5 years. Where we're at now. So, I mean, obviously, like you said, with technology advancing the way it is. But I've run the current workstation at the CPU and RAM running at 100% capacity. So
Any other questions for Sergeant Shiflett or Captain Kaufman? Nope. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This is very interesting.
Great work getting the grant.
Appreciate it. Yeah, exactly.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I move City Council authorize staff to apply for the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services FY 2027 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant.
Thank
Second,
I'll second.
Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Miss Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Miss Park,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. That was the end of our agenda. It takes us to matters from the city manager, Miss
Yeah.
Leslie Beauregard.
Edwards.
Ma'am.
First thing is you may have heard that the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Staunton Public Library Terrace project has been postponed. It was scheduled for this Saturday, but they need a little bit more time to complete some final design updates. That will be rescheduled and announced as soon as possible. I know Ms. Moyer's left, but I would like to announce that our FY 27 budget has received the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association Budget Presentation Award. We apply for this award every year. I think we've won it. I don't know how many years in a row that the city has won it, but it's quite an achievement. There's 4 areas that you have to excel in. You have to be a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. And you have to be proficient in all 4 categories. And there's lots of mandatory criteria within those categories. There are over 1,900 participants in the budget awards program. So I know they're not here, Jesse's not here, but I want to congratulate all the finance staff for their preparation of the budget and everybody who plays a part in putting the budget together every year.
Definitely.
And then finally, sorry, I'm getting there. I want to thank Mr. Overholter for his wonderful update for our new recycling initiatives. Thank you again. I don't think I could really add any more to that. I do just want to thank Josh Knight for all his work, and we'll keep working at this. I want to also give great kudos to Michelle Powell at the Recycling Center and all the staff out there. They do an amazing job. And every time I'm out there, I'm just awed at what they're doing. And I'm really proud of the community for their support of this initiative, what seems like a very good initiative. So thank you, Mr. Overholzer, for talking about that this evening. That is all I have this evening.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Beauregard. This takes us to matters from the public. All righty. This portion of the meeting is set aside for council to hear comments from citizens and others on a wide variety of topics. A copy of the Staunton City Council's Matters from the Public guidelines is available in paper form at the desk by the side door and online on the Staunton City Council website. We ask that you please familiarize yourself with those guidelines before speaking. If you would like to address the council, please come forward to the podium or raise your hand on Zoom. When it's your turn, please state your name and address for the record and limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will let you know if your time expires. As a reminder, this is a time for council to listen and not to answer questions. If you are seeking a response or a follow-up to a question or comment, please speak with the city manager, Leslie Beauregard, or a member of council after the meeting. If you'd like to come, please come up to the podium, and we'll alternate between those physically present and those with their hands raised on Zoom. Good evening, Mr. Burton.
Thank you. Randolph Burton, 211 Hendron Avenue. Good evening, Mayor and council members. At the flood study from Wiley Wilson in 2021, investigated a dozen significant infrastructure projects to try and produce meaningful reductions of flooding during large storm events. A third of these exceeded an estimated $45 million each in anticipated project costs and still might not accomplish much. One of the proposed projects in that study involved daylighting streams at the wharf, an option that was presented in a little more detail this evening. The wharf parking lot is a relatively small area, and even turning the entire space into a deep retention pond could still easily overflow. There will always be rainfalls that are so torrential that no flood mitigation efforts can accommodate them. And the topography of Staunton is such that it is particularly susceptible to flooding downtown, even if all impervious cover upstream was removed. We have more than 8.5 square miles of hilly terrain that drains straight to the wharf parking lot, where Lewis Creek and Gum Springs Branch converge. Still, while we can never eliminate flooding, we should take advantage of opportunities to reduce the severity and duration of potential floods where we can. It is clear we need to look at a larger number of incremental projects. Daylighting the streams at the wharf, broadening the banks, incorporating flood benches, planting appropriate vegetation can all increase the carrying capacity of streams at the site, even if only modestly. But these same efforts can also accomplish more. They can reduce urban heating. They can foster gathering spaces for residents and visitors. They can attract and support wildlife. They can help filter pollutants and lower stream temperatures. Based on some comments at the work session, some members of council seem already inclined to adopt a partial daylighting approach, aiming to preserve more parking. That is certainly one possible option. But if you would like to know whether an open stream surrounded by parking spaces will serve as a community draw, either for residents or visitors, you don't need to commission a study. You can simply walk 100 or 200 yards downstream and see for yourself near Mill Street Grill. The short answer is it is not a draw. I understand there is a concern about parking. As you know, there are 2 multi-level parking garages nearby, one directly across Johnson Street from the wharf and another just 2 blocks away. Staunton doesn't have a parking problem, but it does have a walking problem. I know some people may not patronize a business if they can't park right in front, but perhaps others will be drawn by a new environment. Will it be more? Will it be less? No one knows. There seemed also to be a sense of urgency expressed about making a decision on this as soon as possible. I understand the tunnels themselves are at some risk now, and also that some businesses want immediate action to restore all parking. But when this land was purchased and the parking lot built, the city has had to live with that decision for the next 75 or more years. Whatever decision we make as a community today will not just affect us, but at least several generations of residents. So it is incumbent upon us to take the time to do this right. That requires a substantial process of public engagement. It is not what city staff wants, or some members of council want, or what a few current business owners want, or what I personally want to happen at the wharf, but what does our community want to have for the space? We won't all agree, but we need to have meaningful discussion and input. Which raises the final point that I want to make. Humans are averse to change, and we find uncertainty stressful. And we'll be facing both of those with the wharf. We can make the city better if we exercise some thoughtfulness and courage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Mr. Knight, do we have a hand raised on Zoom?
We have one hand raised.
Thank you. Caller, can you hear me? Go ahead, caller. Caller, can you hear me? You see if they're
She is unmuted.
Hello, caller. We can't hear you. She's unmuted. Okay. Are they on Zoom or is it a phone call?
It's on Zoom.
Why don't we go to somebody in person and try again? Okay, let's go to someone, if anyone would like to speak in person, and we'll try to connect with the person on Zoom. Go ahead. Yeah, we'll just jump the queue. We'll catch back up.
Hi, good evening.
Good
Council.
evening, ma'am.
My name is Johann Westenberg, 113 West Beverly Street. I wish I was as well prepared as Mr. Burton. Thank you for this really good and succinct assessment of daylighting our creek. I don't have much to add because it was so well done, and thank you. But I do really want to stress that there are great examples of cities and communities that have successfully done daylighting projects. And probably the most notable one is Yonkers, New York, which is a large city just north of New York City, with really bedeviled problems of, aging infrastructure, a flume system that was built over a parking lot in 1937. And one of the things that really struck me about the removal of the parking lot and the flume system under the Sawmill River was that it took a long time and it wasn't an easy thing. And if you take the time to watch Carolyn Buckley's documentary called Lost Rivers, you will find that there are merchants who start enthusiastically, and then a year in, they're very very disappointed and very frustrated. And then, when the daylighting actually does occur, they, rebound. As Mr. Burton says, and it's important to underscore that it's not something that everyone can agree on, and it's not something that is an easy decision to make. But in the end, daylighting and green spaces will really have a net positive impact on tourism and also have a net positive impact on real estate values in the downtown region. And I think that I've heard, and I'm not sure if this is really true, but I've heard that we are now officially designated as a retirement community, meaning that 20% of our residents are over retirement age. This is a trend that's going to continue, and there are large tracts of land in the downtown area that are becoming available that will have an opportunity for redevelopment as residential space. And with some forward thinking and some good planning, I really believe that daylighting the creeks as much as possible will be a net win for the city. So that's my comment. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Westenberg. Mr. Knight, do we have a hand raise on Zoom?
We do.
All
Let's
right,
see
we'll
here.
try
Trying
this
again.
again.
Let me try one thing.
Not there? No. Okay. If anyone else in council chambers would like to speak, please approach the podium. Good evening.
Well, that wasn't, I didn't think it was wet. Sorry about that. Anywho, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm your favorite uppity chattel, Mr. Aaron Barmer.
I was looking over the wildly defamatory, if not libelous, uh, so-called reporting last month in the Snooze Leader by the liar and corrupt lapdog Brad Zinn, and an excerpt about my ongoing suffering under discriminatory lawfare as a known humanitarian and public citizen, while the white powers that be in this city are silent. Let's see. The next morning, Barmer was spotted outside Baber's office on New Street screaming profanities and demanding to see him, the affidavit said. I have the perjurious affidavit in my bag right over here. Baber wasn't there, standing outside. Goodness, that could have been anywhere, I guess. Barmer called Baber's secretary and reportedly accused her of being racist before leaving. I mean, it's not like I haven't accused people of being racist before. Isn't that right, City Council? But to people I don't know, and for someone I'm trying to get an interview from about something that they came into City Council and leaked a story about, that ain't how I operate, especially when they've been ducking me since February. Just not how I operate. Weird. Let's play some facts. Two phones really helps. American Quality Control features and comments limited. Now that we know that we're a card-carrying autistic who has been made it this far without services, or, like educational supports tailored for my learning disabilities, and still got these crackers out here hopping. Hello, good morning. This is Mr. Aaron Barmer. My telephone number is 540-480-3040. This will be about the fourth time I've tried to get in touch with the Commonwealth's attorney, Mr. Baber, and at this point, it's really rather rude. And I'm going to publish this. So now that he's given his attention to Mr. Zinn for the case that he's arguing, I'm going to need to follow up with him about some of his comments before the Staunton City Council matters for the public. I think there are some things I think that are left out of Mr. Zinn's article that I think need some clarifying for the public, and also some things that I think are still really unclear for the public. American Quality Control features and comment intends to clarify these matters. And I'm going to interrupt you just for a moment. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm not familiar. That's not necessary. My name is Aaron Barmer. Mr. Baber. Yes, that's right. And so by the end of the day, I'll be published. Give you his email address? We've got all of that. And if Mr. Baber can't, I just want to make sure that you did reach out to him. If Mr. Baber can't get back to me today, I'll be publishing that he's avoiding me because I think that there's possibly a class or racial element that he's really obviously avoiding here, and we're going to put all of that out into the public. And then I'm also trying to tell you I haven't seen him yet. That's great, but I'll also be writing to Richmond for comment and sharing some of my thoughts with the Virginia Mercury, and then some of the other journalists in the area, and we'll be having a conversation about that. That's great. That's fantastic. But he'll have some other questions to answer. Did you reach out to him by email? Ma'am, I gave you his email and you said you wanted to reach out to him. I just wanted to know if you got a response. That's all I'm trying to find out. Ma'am, he knows where to find me, and I'm going to be publishing by the end of the day. Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barmer.
And I'll probably be going back to jail for that. So if I'm disappeared off the streets, please, someone check Middle River. Thank you.
Mr. Knight, do we have hand raised on Zoom?
We do, and I'm going to try again.
No. Would anyone else like to approach the podium, address council? Mr. Knight, still no joy?
Yeah, just the one, and it is unmuted, and I can see that, but it's just
All right.
not getting any signal.
Well, I will. This meeting of the Stanton City Council is adjourned.